Association of California, CLCA, coordinated a series of workshops on the Model Water Efficient Landscape Ordinance that is in effect in the state of California, with the objective of reducing water consumption for the purposes of maintaining landscapes. And it's a great idea, and it started earlier this year, to invite not only contractors who do maintenance work, but city professionals who are involved in the planning department and oversee the submittals that are required by the Model Water Efficient Landscape Ordinance. They review them and approve them, and also city folks and water agency folks. So the whole purpose is to spend about 5.5 hours reviewing the Model Water Efficient Landscape Ordinance, but in a very unique way. We actually do the end of learning all about it. We then actually have everyone calculate water budgets, which are so critical and so key to the whole program. So it's really a great opportunity, and I was asked to do training on the actual irrigation aspect of the Model Water Efficiency Landscape Ordinance. And so that's what I'm doing up here.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, today we got a great guest, and just for anybody who wants to call in, the numbers are 888-909-1050, or if you're local to the station out here in San Bernardino, Redlands area, it's 909-792-5222. And we're live and in color, so anybody watching us on the web can see us, and we'll give a little wave out to there. Mikey can't wave, but he can say hi, and he has. We got a great guest today, and very interesting, because I'm a techie guy, as Mike knows, and I like science. And we have a gentleman named Mr. Neil Bracken, who's president of a company called Weather Modification. They're out of North Dakota, and they do cloud seeding, among other things that they own. And I'd like to bring him aboard and pick his brain. And I know he doesn't. Their company doesn't go around with a little stick where they don't sing and try to make the clouds rain. They do a technical thing to make it rain. So and other things which I read about. So, Mr. Bracken, welcome to the show.
Hey, good afternoon to everybody, and thank you for allowing me to be on here and joining you this afternoon. Absolutely.
I'm excited about having you on because I read a bunch of things about your company and what you do, and I like science stuff, and it's just real interesting to me, and I think a lot of people don't really understand about it, and I thought it was a great topic to have somebody on who's an expert, and your company is actually one of the most noted ones around, at least the USA. But I also noticed that you do stuff all over the world, not just here and locally, meaning in the U.S. You've been to Antigua, Australia, Argentina, Canada, Greece, India, Indonesia, Jordan, Morocco, Saudi Arabia. So your guys go like all over the place.
Yeah, no, that's right. To start, we appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk about what cloud seeding is, and that helps dispel what cloud seeding is not.
Absolutely.
And our company has been around and is one of the oldest and most established and accomplished cloud seeding companies in the world, and we've been in continuous operation since 1961.
And just so that people know, this isn't like crop dusting where you get up a jockey pilot and you put gas in and you fly it around and dump the stuff. I mean, you've got meteorologists, you've got science. I mean, can you tell us a little about weather modification and what you have and the technical portion of what comprises your company?
Yeah, well, weather modification was started in the 1960s by some farmers who came out of the military, where they've been exposed to cloud seeding, and cloud seeding is not a new technology. It's been around since the late 40s, and they looked at the technology and said, "Hey, I think we could apply this to our livelihood in western North Dakota." And they started this, which is how we deploy it today with aircraft, aviation and aerial-based cloud seeding. And what we do today, and what we grew out of that origin is we deploy full turnkey, full service, well-designed and fully executable cloud seeding programs domestically here in the U.S. And as you mentioned, there are a few of our locations around the world. And what we do is we deploy staff, aircraft, radars, other support equipment. We provide modeling, meteorologists, forecasting, all the full services to execute a high-quality cloud seeding program. And what's good for the audience to know is there is an accreditation and a standard for these cloud seeding programs, which is designed and established by the American Society of Civil Engineers. And certainly WMI, with our long history, has been actively involved with that group in learning and applying what we learned in the field to continually raising that standard in executing efficient and effective cloud seeding programs.
Now, you also retrofit planes for other people, or just for yourself? And what kind of planes do you use? I mean, do you use the jet? I saw a video on YouTube about one of your pilots overseas who was rising up through the thing. I mean, it's not as simple as everybody thinks it is, just flying a plane through a cloud. So how does that all work? And
yeah, you mentioned on the modification of airplanes. So our preferred platform is the King Air, a series of aircraft, turboprop aircraft. So a C-90, a Beechcraft King Air 200 or 350, and we choose those airplanes because of their performance, their capability. They're supported very well by Textron and Beechcraft Corporation worldwide, so we can effectively deploy those aircraft around the world and know that they'll be supported from a maintenance perspective, and we're able to source anything we need to keep them fully operational. And with that, the aftermarket term for a FAA endorsed installation is called an STC, or Supplemental Type Certificate. We hold the only supplemental type certificate for complete weather modification and cloud seeding installation on these aircraft that allows for full installation, powered and flight operations, full flight envelope operations with our cloud seeding equipment. So we install and retrofit these aircraft. As you mentioned, it's not about just, as I'll say, some companies and some operators fly around and disperse materials, and that's not what we do. We study the climatology. We understand the weather patterns very well in a particular target area, and our meteorologists and forecasters and modelers develop the program and the program design. Then we have field meteorologists who work with the pilots to designate the seeding criteria. When they're met, then the aircraft are dispatched and launched to this target area. And then the pilots have been trained, so they're not just wandering aimlessly through the sky. They know what to look for and the conditions that are right for effective cloud seeding.
so what are the very... Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, this is so fascinating. I just want to kind of reel it back for a second. And when the company first started in North Dakota, was it primarily to be able to get rain to occur because there was because the average rainfall, or the rainfall for the season, was way below average? I mean, was the main purpose to try to create a rain event at the most opportune time, given all these different factors that you mentioned, that the program design comes up with, and the forecasters and the meteorologists and those folks? So I guess, was it the basic essence of the group of farmers that came back, from their military experience, and said, hey, we want to get a little more reliable irrigation from the sky?
Or is there other purposes for cloud seeding that we don't know about?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and the main purposes and results of effective cloud seeding are for fog mitigation. That's probably the least common, and then the most common ways are precipitation enhancement, which can be in the form of snow or rain, and the third area is for hail mitigation. So the original intent of the starters of Weather Modification Inc. was primarily around hail mitigation, and they worked with the state of North Dakota on a project that still operates today. So it's the longest continuous operating cloud seeding program in the world. run by the state of North Dakota. That's the North Dakota Cloud Modification Project. And the primary objective there is hail mitigation. And I should talk a little about the basic concept there for this type of cloud seeding is around summertime convective thunderstorms. So here in the northern Great Plains, we have significant summertime thunderstorms that often produce hail. And in western North Dakota, it's a quite hail-prone area, and that hail damages crops. So what you do with cloud seeding, and what you have is hailstones form when small condensation nuclei, or small dust particles, run into supercool liquid water. And I'll use the term supercool liquid water, and what that means is water in the atmosphere that is in a liquid form, but it's colder than 0 degrees C. It's colder than the freezing point, but it's not solid, because what the water needs is something solid for it to attach to start the crystalline structure in the ice phase of water. So water will stay when its purest form, will stay in a liquid state up to and colder than even minus 20, minus 25 degrees centigrade, until it has that nucleus to start the crystalline structure and then instantly freeze. So that's what you hear about when aircraft are icing up or hit icing conditions. What they're doing is flying through supercool liquid water, and it hits the airframe and freezes to the airframe. So that's really what we're targeting in summertime convective hail suppression cloud seeding. You have hailstones, and these hailstones travel up and down in a thunderstorm. And as they're cycling up and down the thunderstorm, they get larger and larger as they accrue more and more supercool liquid water. And what we're doing is adding additional condensation nuclei. So think of a given parcel of volume of air that has a given amount of supercool liquid water. And if you have, for simplicity's sake, 10 hailstones forming in there, and they're bumping into all this liquid water and growing, what we do is add more nucleation, more nucleants, and we call them condensation nuclei, into that same volume of air. And instead of 10 stones, now you have 500 or 1,000 stones, and they're much smaller. And many of those stones, once they fall, will be smaller, causing less damage, or they even turn into precipitation because they melt between cloud base and reaching the ground.
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I would just, that is a very intriguing technology, and one that I had never heard before. I don't know, Rob, if you've heard of that, but that's so clever.
Oh, absolutely. Well, what determines if a specific area is a good candidate for cloud seeding? I mean, does it involve the necessity of certain cloud formations, temperature? I mean, I would think there's some factors that that you have to determine before you say, yes, we'll do the job, or yes, we can do it, but we need these conditions, or how does that work?
Yeah, it falls into what is the desired result of the cloud seeding. As I mentioned, is it hail mitigation, as I was talking about there, or is it precipitation increase in the form of snow or rain? So here where I was talking about in the northern Great Plains, and there's cloud seeding programs that have been or are currently active in Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and we have a 22-year running program up in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, that's actually sponsored by property casualty insurance companies. So their motivation is obviously to have less hail damage at the surface. And so these hail-prone areas, the basic, and again, what's naturally occurring is you have an abundance of supercooled liquid water and a deficit of condensation nuclei, or these small dust particles. And so we know if there's a significant hail and there's thunderstorms, which is, you take the Rocky Mountains and look from Canada all the way down into to Mexico, and on the eastern side of that, wherever you have a significant amount of hail, there's an abundance of supercooled liquid water that if you introduce condensation nuclei in the right place and the right time, and that's what we do as a company, is find those locations that you can reduce the hail impact on the ground.
So, as I said earlier, I know you guys do stuff all over the world. I know you did a project called the Cloud Aerosol Interaction and Precipitation Experiment. So, say that was done overseas, and I don't know if that was or not, but you have several that you've done overseas. Do you use the same aircraft to fly over there to do it, or do you have to do something different when you're doing these experiments for these governments or cities or these other agencies? How does that work?
Well, yeah, generally we do. We try to, again, use the same platform, same aircraft, Beechcraft King Air aircraft, because it helps us with training and continuity and overall cost. And again, those aircraft are globally supported, and they perform very well. So, for example, we do a lot of operational cloud seeding. I mentioned some of that here in the Dakotas and Canada. What you were referring to there was the acronym KIPEX, and that was done in India. And in India, the operational program was actually research. And what our STCs that I referred to earlier allow us to do is not only install cloud seeding equipment, but we can also install a lot of measuring devices. So aerosol measurements, cloud physics instruments that attached to pylons on the aircraft, and what those are used for is to essentially take a core sample in the atmosphere. So think about an airplane that's kind of doing circle racetrack patterns at various altitudes, climbing in the sky and then descending, measuring the different size, concentration of the particles as you're flying through, and then correlating that to the temperature levels and the three-dimensional winds, so they can get a good core sample of what the atmosphere is, and that allows researchers for an ample number of different purposes to study anything from can cloud seeding be effective to what are the natural aerosols that might be enhancing rain that could be supplemented with other additional cloud seeding. It allows study of pollution and pollution origin, pollution monitoring, tracing black carbon, just a myriad of possibilities with the measurements that we can take.
Is it?
Rob, can I ask?
No, go ahead.
From a marketing perspective, I'm thinking to myself, how does a company like yours, with your company's skill set and services, get connected with an insurance company? Is that something that your company goes out to try to think of applications that might be of value to potential customers, or did they seek out your company because you have a reputation within this weather modification community that made them reach out to you? Do you have any history about that?
Yeah, certainly. And it's happened in different ways. In regards to the insurance program and the insurance sponsor program in Canada, that was them seeking a solution and us jointly understanding a potential solution here, and then working together on designing of a pilot project. And they established a 3-year pilot project to study and see if this was effective or not, and they used third-party validation of this, collaborating with some research and academic institutions to study the work, and they decided very conclusively that this was effective. And then they are able to say, well, what does a kind of build out of this program cost? And then they can make a good business decision on the cost benefit to deploying this program. And they've obviously made the decision that it's well worth the investment, as we've again mentioned. We're 22 years in running on that program up there.
Yeah, that's amazing. Is that something where there has to be any type of permitting or licensing from the country, maybe from their, one of their agencies, or is that something because you did coordinate it with the different institutions that just marched along as a test and it was? Yeah,
each state and then each country is is different. And, we work with the local authorities, and in Canada, we work with Environment Canada to assure the permitting, and we assure what the equipment that we're using and then the materials that we're using for the actual cloud seeding. And, those are reviewed, and there is permitting required up there, and we go through the process and full disclosure on what we're doing and how we're doing it so that we can have the appropriate permits to execute those programs. In the United States, essentially almost every state, if you look in it, does have a policy or a permitting process for cloud seeding. Now, a lot of them are very similar, but there is a state-by-state permitting process here in the U.S.
Is that because you use some specialized chemical agents that initiate the precipitation process, and I would assume then you fly directly through the clouds to do this stuff?
Well, again, it depends on the type of cloud seeding. Again, for hail mitigation or if we're looking for precipitation or snow increase. Our most common types of active components are, one, salt. So just common table salt that is used in the pyrotechnic flares, and we're, of course, not using the size of crystals you'll see, on table salt. We're trying to get those to be very, very small so that they're the appropriate size to create and enhance the coalescing and growing of cloud droplets. And then the other cold cloud material that we use is the active component of silver iodide. And silver iodide is used because it very much emulates the crystalline structure of ice, and therefore when it's burned in a chemical compound that we manufacture ourselves, and that's been tested numerous times in cloud chambers by third-party institutions, and there's even an EPA statement out on silver iodide and its environmental safety and use, that it's dispersed in the small materials, the small condensation nuclei that result from these pyrotechnic flares with silver iodide, greatly enhance the growth of ice nucleants and therefore precipitation.
So once you disseminate the iodide or any of the materials, how long does it take before the commencement of precipitation or whatever you were trying to achieve happen? Is it immediate, or does it take a while?
So in the summertime thunderstorm hail mitigation cloud seeding, we do two types of seeding using the same material. So we're using silver iodide because we're targeting super cool liquid water, and so it's colder than zero, so we're using silver iodide. And we will do base seeding. So think of a thunderstorm when you see the dark clouds and what's known as a shelf cloud. That's where you see a significant amount of updraft into the growing part of a storm. So we will fly along the front edge of this inflow, this updraft into the storm, and we'll burn these flares, and the storm will naturally intake. Just like it's taking natural salt and dust from the ground, it'll take our condensation nuclei of silver iodide up into the cloud, which will target the supercooled liquid water. And then we'll have another aircraft that's up at a higher altitude. And they're looking for temperature levels, not altitude. So we're looking to be between -5 and -10. And at that altitude, we can find the most effective supercooled liquid water. We won't fly through the heart of a thunderstorm. That's crazy. And we don't do that sort of operations. What we do is fly in new growth and what we term as feeder cells to a summertime thunderstorm. And you'll penetrate that, and you'll hit a solid updraft. And it can be a bumpy ride for the guys, and you'll hit this liquid water, and again, it's freezing to the surface of the airplane, and then we'll drop what we call ejectable flares, and they look like about the size of a shotgun shell, and we disperse those out of the belly or the underside of the airplane, and they will burn as they fall out, and of course they're caught in the updraft. And so as they're burning, they're releasing condensation nuclei into this large pool of supercooled liquid water, and we're starting the ice phase, and that starts the precipitation and range phase earlier in the storm in the cell, and that in turn mitigates the abundance of liquid water that would later create large damaging hail. So back to the time, when you're base seeding, you're looking at 15 to 20 minutes before that material is actually at the altitude and being effective, and then subsequently having an effect on a particular cell or storm. Whereas the higher altitude ejectable cloud seeding is essentially instant, because you're in the liquid water, you are right where you need to be, and when you fire those flares, they're working instantly.
How long does the effect stay going? For example, you obviously, I shouldn't say obviously because I don't know, but you go over cloud or clouds, you do your thing. How much precipitation does it create? And does it last, is it minutes, hours, days, and does it affect anything surrounding that area?
Yeah, that's a very common question. Again, I'll differentiate between two types of seeding. So I've been talking about summertime convective thunderstorm seeding, and so when we start actively seeding a particular storm or cell, we're looking at 20 to 25 minutes before we're taking an effect. Again, cloud top seeding, those are essentially instant. And so the same thing when we stop seeding, those effects and the materials are going to stay active and circulating within the storm for another 20 to 25 minutes once we're completed with our seeding. Now, if you look at a different type of cloud seeding, which is wintertime, snowpack increase, cloud seeding, and it's just what it sounds like. We're looking to increase snowfall in a particular target area or region. What we're doing is the same thing. We're looking for this super cool liquid water, and typically this type of seeding is in the western United States. It's going on there in California right now, and Idaho, and Arizona, Colorado, Wyoming, several places out the western United States. You'll get more stratiform clouds, so not a lot of vertical development, but it's west to east flow, and as this moist air goes over the mountains, it's pushed upward and it cools, and you have these pockets of water that becomes super cool, and so we'll fly directly through that. And just like with the seeding I was talking about for convective storms, we're actually now inside the super cool liquid water. You're getting ice on the airplane, and you're burning the flares, and you'll see instant results. And we have some great data that's going to be coming out in the early part of this next year on some studies that were done with the University of Wyoming and NCARS, the National Center for Atmospheric Research in Boulder, Colorado, where they have some wonderful imaging of the direct effects of operational cloud seeding, where you can literally see the trails of the airplane going through the supercool liquid water, and you have a snow shower right behind you.
Wow.
Very effective.
Now, we've talked about precipitation increase. We've talked about hail mitigation, which I thought was the most unique to a layperson. Is there any other category of major service that your company provides?
The only other area that is actively is fog mitigation. And cloud seeding can be effective. It's the same concept, the same idea we're speaking of here with cold fog. So fog that is going to be 0 degrees or colder. And you see an active program up in Medford, Oregon, the airport up there, where they use actually balloons dropping dry ice. And they're doing the same thing. They're creating, and what the dry ice is sublimates, and it creates colder temperatures and ice crystals instantly as it's sublimating, and you can get clearing of cold fog around airports. And there's a number of other airports that have done this or actively do this, Salt Lake City and Reno and others that in different parts of the world that do cold cloud fog mitigation.
Now, I know that your company uses some sophisticated instrumentation. Does your company typically manufacture these different instruments, kind of customize them to the particular service that you're offering to a customer, or do you does your company aggregate different pieces of equipment, put them together for a particular purpose?
Yeah, so typically for operational cloud seeding, and the core of our installation, our STCs, is cloud seeding equipment that we manufacture and that we've certified through the FAA certification process to be fully functional and operational on aircraft. So all of our cloud seeding equipment we manufacture and install and maintain and warranty ourselves. Now, when it gets into many of the other instrumentation, again, it's almost limitless on the number of instruments that can be installed under our STC, as I mentioned, for cloud physics and pollution monitoring. Those instruments are very technical and detailed, and those we contract out with some close providers who sell us the solid-state instruments that are installed. And the strength and what we do as a company is we integrate those instruments into a data package and an operational aircraft that given institution can use.
I've just got one other question, Rob, if I can. What kind of talent do you typically look for in hiring? I mean, is it strictly particular type of engineering or chemistry, or what? Could you describe kind of the academic background of your typical employee, if there is a typical employee at your company?
Yeah, well, like every employer, we're looking for good people that are motivated, bring a great attitude to the job. But technically, on the technical side, we have very skilled pilots, and these are guys and gals that want to do more than just fly A to B. They want to have a purpose to what they're doing and flying, and they like seeing the results of the work that they're doing out there, and they like to do something unique. Then on the meteorology and technical side, again, meteorologists, there's a lot of different jobs out there in meteorology, and ours is a very unique one where a meteorologist has the opportunity to work in the office and do data processing. They can work in high-resolution modeling, WRF modeling, which is where you get a lot of your TV station, radio station forecasts from WRF models from National Weather Service, and et cetera. So we do specifically design cloud seeding WRF modeling that our talented group has designed ourselves. And then we do field work with Doppler weather radars, and in the field, the meteorologist is really the project coordinator. They're sort of the heart and the quarterback of the team out there. They're the ones that are taking the daily forecast and communicating that to the operational team, which generally the pilots and then aircraft mechanics or technicians that are there, giving them a 24-hour, 48 and 72-hour outlook over the potential for cloud seeding opportunities. And then when it's time, they coordinate and schedule the launch of the aircraft so that they can be in the right place at the right time. And then our skilled pilots who have been trained and have experience, they take over from there and put themselves in the right position to be effective. So each of our skill sets, you need that technical background, and then we offer the opportunity to do something unique. And most of we have a lot of long-term staff, and we're fortunate in that in the leadership roles of meteorology and in our technical services and in our chief pilot and director of maintenance. I mean, I think we have well over 20 years of experience in each of those roles. So fortunate to have a lot of really good, dedicated people.
Oh. Hey, silly question, but can you immediately drink the water generated by cloud seeding?
Yeah, absolutely. The studies, again, on cloud seeding and the use of, when it comes to use of salt, that's pretty straightforward, but there's always questions in silver iodide. And, is silver harmful and is iodide harmful? Well, what we have is silver iodide. We have an inert substance. And probably the most extensive work I've done with this is during a 9-year program that's still ongoing in Wyoming. Was involved with a couple of universities and environmental groups, and they studied the target area, and they took snow samples, they did stream samples, fish tissue, downstream samples of the snow and the water and everything to measure traces and find silver iodide in the target area from cloud seeding. What they found is they actually aren't finding any more than is found naturally. And when they overall look at a cloud seeding program such as in Wyoming, where you're increasing the snowfall in this target area, therefore increasing fresh water, that these cloud seeding programs are environmentally friendly and environmentally positive. So short answer is yes. And I've actually seen people take spoonfuls of silver iodide and demonstrate that. So it's very safe.
I just want to ask, have you done any projects in the state of California?
Yes, we're out there right now. There's operational programs, and there's been cloud seeding in California for more than 40 years. Now,
wow.
We would love to see, and not all cloud seeding programs are the same. We'd love to see the standards raised a bit in California. Big reason why I like to do programs like this is a good story and needs to get out there, and there needs to be more discussion over effective, well-run, quality cloud seeding programs, because that is a big part of the water management solution for the state of California. And the water districts out there that are involved, they are active and they're trying, and they want to do more, and they want to expand what they're doing and invest in what they're doing, but they're a little bit limited. And there needs to be more public and private investment and interest in effective, well-run cloud seeding programs.
Oh. Well, I sure learned a lot more today.
Yeah, maybe there's even an opportunity in the future to specifically interview you and have a discussion about the water management aspects of cloud seeding and how it's being used in California, because that certainly would be a very hot topic for our California listeners. So we'll have to put that on our list.
Absolutely, and it's not just California; it's other places. Neil, we thank you very much. I'm excited to listen to you, and I want to learn more about what you guys. So I'll keep reading up on you. And as Mike said, maybe we can call you back one day and in the near future and talk about this in general, and talk to some major water agency. Talk about the seeding cost effectiveness in relation to the overall results, and get into the things where the municipalities and the water agencies may have questions in. But this is an exciting field, and I never realized how much, I didn't want to think it's some crop dusting kind of operation, like you can see on the movies.
Not that we have anything against crop dusters.
No, not at all. But it's a whole technical science, and that's,
Sure.
for me, that interests me. So, Neil, we appreciate you coming on the Water Zone.
Yes,
thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity again, and we do feel we have a great story and an evolving story, and I'd love to come back to speak with maybe other water stakeholders, whether it's government or public or private, that we could participate in. Again, we'd love to get the word out there and find solutions, because I think we are part of the solution.
Yeah, well,
and just to let folks know, they can go to weathermodification.com to access your website. Very informative and very revealing of the various services and programs that you offer.
Yeah, that's great. We appreciate that, and we'd welcome any and all contacts and calls and questions that your listening public may have.
And we can hook you up with some water agencies out here too, so that'll be a good thing to do.
All right, California Irrigation Institute.
There you go.
Be careful, because maybe in the next year we'll ask. You'll be getting an invitation to address a forum of water agencies in California. So we
be happy to be there.
That. All right, super,
all right.
Neil. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Neil.
Thank you both.
All right, we're going to take a little break, and we'll be back to the Water Zone with Mike and Rob here on KCAA. And stick around. We'll be talking more water and so what's happening around our state. So we'll be back in a moment.
This is Brooke's yard, and Brooke loves spending time with her kids. What she doesn't love are the ugly bare spots in her lawn. That's why Brooke uses Scott's Easy Seed. Unlike seed alone, with proper care, Easy Seed's all-in-one growing solution grows grass anywhere. The first time, guaranteed. This is a Scott's yard. Pick up Scott's Easy Seed today.
Are you looking for a place to buy your landscape and gardening items? Come visit us at Site One Landscape Supply. We offer a large and quality selection of irrigation, landscape, and outdoor living products such as Toro's water-efficient precision nozzles. Site One Landscape Supply has over 30 locations right here in Southern California, and we are the largest national wholesale distributor of landscape supplies in the United States. Site One's knowledgeable and friendly staff is equipped to help you with all your landscape, irrigation, and outdoor living projects. Whether you're redoing your backyard into a drought-tolerant garden or creating a water-efficient landscape for your client, Site One has everything you need, including the latest in water-saving technologies, drought-tolerant plants for your yard, irrigation supplies, fertilizer and weed control products, landscape accessories, hardscape products, outdoor lighting, and much, much more. Visit SiteOne.com to find a store near you or stop by today. Site One. We are stronger together.
Well, welcome back to the Water Zone with Mike and Rob. Hope everybody's having a great day. I know I am. I'm learning a whole bunch of stuff. That's what makes this gig pretty interesting, Mike. You know, we get to talk to some interesting people, and one of the most interesting people that we know is the purveyor of Maven's Notebook, Miss Chris Austin. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
We're doing good. So tell us what's happening in the wonderful world of California. I hear we got melting ice, which could cause more drought?
Oh, well, you know, they did say drought is the new normal. And, you know, the changes at the poles are affecting worldwide wind patterns and where the jet stream goes. And where the jet stream goes, the storms follow. And if the jet stream is not sending them to us, we don't get any. And, you know, in California, we depend on just a handful of strong storms every year, so if we miss a couple, it really can mean quite a dry year. And what they've seen happen now is this ridge of high pressure is getting set up again, like it was a few years ago when we had the really dry year. A really smart grad student guy named Daniel Swain out of Stanford first named this ridge the Ridiculously Resilient Ridge, the RRR, which sort of became a term that sort of riffled through the weathermen all over the place. But it really actually came from Daniel first, and that's the name he coined for this ridge that just gets set up over there to the west of the United States, this big air column, and it just keeps all the storms away. And so right now we're seeing that ridge move back into position. And when it will go, nobody knows. But there is no rain in the foreseeable future that they can say. So,
Chris, do you hear water agency personnel starting to talk about the possibility that we're going to have a significantly below average rainfall year?
Well, we all knew that, you know, drought could come back. And again, it's early in the season, so we shouldn't get too caught up in this. But all the signs are that we're headed for another dry year. And, you know, for those of us in the water biz, we understand that drought, you know, could return and it could become, as they call, the new norm.
Well, Mike and I now know somebody from a cloud seeding company we can recommend.
Well, and cloud, you know, and actually I wrote an article on that. And cloud seeding, actually, it does work. But the problem is there has to be clouds. And if there aren't any clouds, there's nothing to be seeded.
There's got to be some moisture up in that upper atmosphere. That's for sure.
Or we get a giant fan and we blow them over this California.
You know,
and right now they're talking, you know, humidity is, you know, like 4%, 6%. I mean, essentially right now there is no water vapor in the air over Southern California.
Well, we should go to Vegas and get them to do an over-under. You know, number for the inches of rain in L.A. You know, is it going to be over or under 15 inches? So we'll see. That's not very optimistic at this point in time. And of course, You think
well,
of the fires.
it isn't. But we must keep in mind this is very early in the season.
Yeah.
And things can
well,
change.
At least the reservoirs are still in good shape, other than in terms of a percentage of how full they are relative to historical averages. They all seem to be above their historical averages, except, of course, for Oroville. And it'll be interesting, they lowered that level significantly to make way for possible water from runoff this rainy season. So hopefully that thing will get filled up again.
Yes, and hopefully, the reservoirs are in good shape, and hopefully we get some precipitation and we're not looking at another dry year. But come in the springtime, when it comes time to make decisions on, how much water they're going to let out of the reservoirs, it's going to be very difficult if it's been another dry year to, there's going to be a lot of push and pull. Because people are going to want water, but they're going to want to hold some back because we could have another year. And, we all say the drought is over, but maybe we just got punctuated with a really good wet year. And
maybe we should start saying the drought is never over. If we have a year like last year, that's just simply we're preparing for the next drought. So let's, conserve our resources, our water resources as much as possible. So that's a good point. What any movement on the Twin Tunnel project, the California water fix?
I haven't heard too much since the Aqua Convention last week. We're all sort of waiting to see for the agencies, to make their move. There's, discussion. I'm sure there's probably discussion behind the scenes over what we can build. And what I heard from Jeff Keitlinger with Metropolitan Water District at the Aqua Conference last week was they were considering building it in phases. So there would be one tunnel and two intakes, and then they go back and finish it if they ever got the financing together to finish that. But so far, it's been kind of quiet on the tunnel front as we sort of move into the holidays, and also, the attention focused on the wildfires, quite honestly.
Oh, yeah. It's been devastating. Our hearts go out to those folks that have been affected by that in Ventura and Oxnard areas.
Even L.A., it's been horrific. Just watching the news on those.
Are you anywhere near those fires, Chris?
The Rye Canyon one is a little bit north of us. I was, but so far all the fires are downwind, shall we say, which has been a blessing in that we personally here haven't had to endure the bad air quality. But the fires are just terrible. I'm amazed that the Rye Canyon fire hasn't taken any structures. It kind of looked like it was burning in town, but it turns out it wasn't really.
Wow. Well, have you heard the words La Niña whispered by anyone at the various events that you've attended recently? Last I heard there was a moderate La Niña that they thought was setting up. So, again, what does that mean? It's hard to say. Generally, it does mean drier conditions for us, but all bets can be off in this world where things are changing on, at the poles and the currents of the ocean. It all really plays into the weather, and it's going to be interesting to see how things change.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, we're going to have, I was just going to say, Mike, we have somebody from Westlands Water next week.
Oh, who do you have coming in?
I don't recall the exact name of the person, but we got that set up. We got our ag group help set that up for us, and that'll be an interesting thing. I'll get you that and send it up to you so you can see. You can call in. That'll be a great show.
Yeah.
So, hey, I hear our buddies from Northern Cal are blasting the DWR over the dam repairs.
Oh well, they're pretty concerned. You know, they're concerned about these cracks that they found, and the contractors and everybody took a look and said this isn't really anything to be worried about. But the people that live there are they're not so sure. They don't want to be evacuated again. And you know, the people of Oroville sort of have a turbulent history with DWR. When they built that dam up there back in, you know, the 50s, the 60s, the community was really promised that it was going to be this big recreational mecca and there would be all sorts of amenities, and this is really going to bring tourism to the town, and they do quite well. And, you know, they didn't get quite the recreational facilities they were promised. They feel DWR has let them down on, you know, in terms of the agreements that they made when they came in and built the dam. You know, they live in the shadow of the dam and endure the danger while the water all goes south for the rest of us. So there's some turbulent history there. I'm not sure that these cracks are anything to be concerned about. I would tend to go with what the feds and the state are saying. You know, and there's still more work to come on that spillway next year. So I would expect that. You know, I believe that they're planning to do roller compacted concrete up the whole. Structural concrete up the whole spillway, and it's only part way structural concrete. They couldn't finish it all this year, so I believe the structural concrete will be strong, and it's supposed to be much stronger than what was there before.
Have you... go ahead, Mike.
No, that's okay.
No. So, talking about watershed restoration and protection project, I hear the Reclamation and DWR are releasing this CalCim 3.0 model.
Yeah, it's a new model. You know, they with all these reservoirs and water project operations going on around the state, it's quite a management enterprise, shall we say, in terms of trying to get everything to work. And so we use models to sort of estimate and figure out how things are going to work if we do X, what happens to Y, etc. And they have a new model out that's supposed to be better and more accurate. So that model is being sent out for testing, and so that will hopefully help, you know, water managers deal better with water project operations and be able to estimate, you know, what's going to happen with certain actions.
Well, certainly needed.
Oh, it all helps. It's amazing what they're able to do with computer models these days.
Yep.
Well, you know, with computer models, so much is dependent upon what the kind of the unstated assumptions are. But gosh, with the power of computers today and the level of intelligence of the various researchers and graduate students and professors, that there's sure a lot of power, predictive power in the work that they do, and it gives us a lot of information to at least consider alternatives. That's for sure.
Yes, I believe Jay Lund would say that models are always wrong, but they give us insights.
Well, boy, there's a, you know, he's the I like to quote his new environmentalism concepts, and now I've got another one that all models are wrong, but they do serve it to provide insight. That's good.
Yes,
like that.
And you know, some of them are useful for insights, but you know, it's quite amazing, you know, water and how it flows across the landscape and how it flows through channels, and they've just now been able to model backwaters in flood flows, because they could model water going down, but they were just unsure when it starts backing up what that would mean. And so they've actually made some steps in modeling flood flows that will be really useful. It's amazing when you realize how much we don't know.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Well,
true.
Chris, I think we're getting our signal that we have
Yep.
to call it an evening. Thank you so much, as always, for your reports. And, Rob, you have a good night, too.
You too, and fly safe back home, Michael.
Oh, you got it.
All right.
Take care,
Good
Chris.
night, everybody. Your most important thing to do this week, think blue, because...
On Spaceship Earth, we are all crew.
Absolutely. Good night, everybody.
KCAA